Okay, welcome back to your training on critters generally and termites specifically. In this segment, we're going to talk about how to address a termite problem. Now, the first thing we need to identify as far as what address means is, based on my experience as a home inspector, if you see, for example, termite mud tubes, probably 80+% of the time, it's an indication that we had termites, and for whatever reason the problem went away. Maybe we had a leaking roof, somebody recognized that, they replaced the roof, and they didn't ever realize perhaps that they had termites, so they didn't ever address that directly. And then you've got basically you just got conditions that change, and then the termites die, and then you've got a termite history. So it is very much important to identify whether you got a termite colony that's active or a history. Now, how to address them? Yeah, the first thing you can do is repair leaks. Water away from the foundation. Through my career as a home inspector, I've been known to be very careful, is perhaps the right word, about guiding clients to understand that water needs to not be in the basement, and the way to make sure it's not in the basement is to make sure it's not on the outside of the foundation. Concrete is not waterproof, and it cracks. It's part of its nature to crack, and every one of those cracks is going to be a pathway in. Water can actually seep through even an uncracked concrete, and then that's how you find what's called efflorescence, which is kind of a white, flowery stuff. Any of the above kind of sources can be water inside the house, which can make conditions better for termites. So you got to keep water away from the foundation on the exterior. That means no drainage toward the foundation. That means your rain gutters force water away, roof drainage water away from the foundation. And it means your sprinklers don't spray the house. One of the stories I have actually is a friend of mine who was both a neighbor and a client of mine. She's a realtor. And she actually called me up one day and she says, if I were to have called you, would you have found the termite problem that I have? And I listened to her story. Basically what had happened is she had her sprinklers spraying the east side of her house, and that happened over a long period of time, and basically the entire east exterior wall of her house was now a termite farm. So I didn't give her the answer gently. I basically told her, I may or may not have found the termite colony because those might have been behind the wall. I never actually saw the house, but I told her I would have helped you prevent the problem from ever happening in the first place, and I would have done that by telling her don't spray the house with the sprinklers. It's that important. Again, if you got gutters, if you don't have gutters, you got a problem. If you do have gutters and they're clogged, you've got a problem because, again, you're not controlling the water and getting it away from the house. Water that doesn't get away from the house gets into the house, and then you've got termites. Removing excess cover and mulch. I mentioned my buddy who had the backyard where you've got all the leafy debris that's right up against the house. If you got that sort of thing, you have made it very comfortable for termites to get a start right next to your house. And then, of course, the next thing that happens is they move into the house and they go looking for wet wood. Wet wood being dinner, and then, of course, they start turning your house into soil, which, none of us kind of want to do that. No standing water on the roof. I have seen, especially a number of homes where they did a flat roof, and flat roofs still aren't flat, and in many cases they actually turn bowl-shaped over time. And when that happens, water is going to find its way down into the living space, and as it does so, the termites are going to be there. So your roof needs to drain properly and completely. You want to make sure that you keep the vents clear, especially on maybe your dryer. I have seen where maybe dryer vents get plugged, and then all the humidity that is normally being exhausted by the clothes dryer, it can't get out to the exterior, so instead it's being forced into the wall, and all that humidity can cause a termite problem. Same with crawl space vents. Those need to be open and clear, and they need to actually be circulating air through that crawl space so that any moisture that either gets into that crawl space from whatever source or maybe from the ground, that can be circulated back out. If that does not happen, then you can have conditions ripe for termites in that sort of scenario. You want to remove the food sources. In many cases, I'll see, for example, firewood stacked near the house, and that firewood is sitting on soil. That's a perfect food source for termites. So if you or your clients actually, still like to do the wood-burning fireplace, and I know those are getting less and less politically correct and more difficult and expensive, but if you still like to do that, make sure that firewood is stacked on something that's going to make it a little more difficult for a termite to get through. That would be maybe a plastic sort of a plate that stuff gets placed on, or even just concrete. But you don't want to have the wood to soil contact there. That just makes it way too easy. If you've got stumps outside, just know that it's the job of termites to turn that stump back into soil, and that is what's going to be happening, and there's very little you can do about that. So just know that within a few feet from your house, you've got millions of termites, and so you've got to work that much harder to make sure that there is nothing inside the house for them to eat. And again, food is wet wood, so you got to keep the water out. Decks and fences, anything where you've got wood to soil contact, that needs to be eliminated so that the termites just don't have any more of a reason to be in your yard than there may already be there naturally. Next section, we're going to talk about ants. We'll be right back.